Hey motherfuckers, welcome to Box Office Addict 72. Box Office Addict is my weekly live stream podcast where I talk about the weekend numbers and have a free-form discussion with the chat. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, the wonderful Bathory, and my regular cast of misfits. I guess we're not the misfits or the Island of Lost Toys, we're more like the Island of Lost Dipshits. But I suppose, like said in 16 Candles, it's better to be the king of something than nothing at all. So, this episode, which is 2 weeks late, I'm sorry, I apologize. My sincere apologies to all of you. I'm so sorry. Box office means family. Here's what happened. I was going to do a Box Office Addict with Blood Money, the doctor himself, and get his medical advice on the box office. Unfortunately, while he was here, I felt like he was procrastinating on recording, perhaps. Also, we were so hungover on the Tuesday that I was going to do Box Office Addict, because as you know, the show went from Sundays to Tuesdays, although it's a Monday now, so I guess I'm just schizophrenic. But the thing was, is we were going to record on... He is a chill dude, but we were going to do a Tuesday Box Office Addict, and then we were going to do the Cusack stream, which I guess... indirectly became the pilot for the Beef Stew podcast, which I didn't realize was happening while we were doing it, and it's crazy we were doing it in person. All of these months of him and I having just intense conversations, I mean, doing fucking marathons of conversation, 8 hours. I think one time we had a 16-hour conversation, and not recording any of it. A great 3 Billboards review, a phenomenal conversation on Bergman, in particular Fanny and Alexander, Spielberg conversations, David Lynch conversations, philosophical conversations, political conversations, and discussions on the meaning of life and where we are in the universe and who we are manipulating people, psychology, how we relate to others, is empathy, how deep it goes between us and how we feel about others, the evil of women, all sorts of things. None of it recorded. Not a single fucking minute of it recorded. Just gold laying there for no one to see, no one to spend, no one to possess and hold in their hands. But then, Blood Money flies out here to see John Cusack, but also to see me, my beauty, my grandeur, if you will. I am the Gatsby to his Caraway. So this old sport fuck and I did not get around to recording Box Office Addict. So I thought, okay, well, I'll do it next week. Because Blood Money was here from, I believe, Sunday to the next Wednesday. So I said, we'll do it the next Tuesday. And then we didn't do it again. And we weren't hungover this time. I guess this was just through sheer laziness, and also that it was the last night that we got to hang out together before he went to the airport, which was at 5 o'clock in the fucking morning. So that's where we're at. That's why there's been no Box Office Addict for the last 2 weeks. I apologize, but Box Office Addict's become more inconsistent over the last few months. It used to be once a week. I think I might just make a statement here or try to... I think that the show in general is just going to probably be twice a month. Maybe 3 times a month. I think doing it weekly, it's not that I don't like doing it or I don't think I have the ability to do it, and I mean like verbally or to talk about something week to week. It's just time. It's very time consuming, and on these days that I get to record it, I just have so many things to do that it's hard to fit it into my schedule. So that's the only issue with it. The Beef Stew podcast, now that it's finally got its cherry popped, I'm hoping to continue that and at least do one of those a month. I don't think we're going to be able to do one a week, but that's 12 episodes a year, and it's not about quantity, it's about quality. I think that was a damn good pilot episode. I think we had a chemistry. I think keeping it to about an hour was a really good idea. I think that we didn't overdo it, and we always talked about our podcast being about an hour long. So the Beef Stew podcast. So here's where the channel might be going, although this changes constantly. Remember Please Rewind Presents, when that show was going to be a fucking thing? I believe I'm going to continue to make the essay videos with Terrible Lizard, which would be like the private lessons video or the Good Will Hunting video. I will occasionally be doing movie reviews, such as the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse review. And then I will do Box Office Addict twice a month, maybe more. And then I will do the Beef Stew podcast with Blood Money, and then occasionally bring other people onto the channel like David Stewart. Also, an update, Wild Smile has recently got in touch with me. He is back from a hiatus, and I will be live streaming with Wild Smile at some point in the near future. Mauler said he will have me on EFAP at some point. He follows me on Twitter. I don't know when that is going to be. Maybe I need to pursue that. And hopefully I can get back on the High Council at some point, or bring Jeff over from World Class Bullshitters onto the channel. So I'm hoping it's going to be a lucrative summer, spring to summer. I need to get over this shitty weather. I need to find a better schedule for myself, and hopefully I can get about 4 or 5 uploads a month. We can boost this channel up to 15,000, 20,000 subs over the summer, and have a big, I don't know, just have the show be what it needs to be. This channel, what it needs to be. Because I feel like the channel's in a really good spot. I think my videos are probably better than they've ever been in a lot of ways. Just from a editing standpoint and my commentary and all that. So I'm really excited. Yes, that David Stewart from the Eurythmics. Yeah, sweet dreams are indeed made of these. So, Box Office Addict 72. This one is going to be built around an Oscar conversation, and then the numbers, and of course discussing Alita Battle Angel, which should have been the Box Office Addict film of the week last week when it opened at #1, but we're going to still keep it as the Box Office Addict film of the week, despite How to Train Your Dragon 3 being the #1 movie and actually performing rather well, which I thought was going to happen. So let's get into the Oscars, which I watched last night in a hotel room with my fiance as we drank and ate sub sandwiches. And we had a fun old time while she fell asleep over the last hour and I was continuing to fall asleep. So let's get into this. What the fuck was this Oscars? What the fuck was it? It reminded me in the 90s when there was all these terrible country music videos, and a lot of them would usually be about a disabled kid or some kid that got shot. It was like some sonic and visual garbage that is burned into my mind. It's imprinted on me now, and I don't think I'm going to be able to wipe that off my ass for a while. I think the shit stains on my underwear that are this year's Oscar are going to continue to stay with me for years to come. Right off the bat, I don't know what I'm going to do with Wild Smile, to be honest with you. We'll have to figure that out. I thought I was going on his channel for something. Maybe I'll have a crossover thing. David Stewart's been wanting to come back on the channel for months. I don't know why the fuck I don't do stuff with David Stewart. Like me and David, it's just like great. So everything about it was just I don't know. The not having a host I thought was going to be a positive, and I also thought the cutting the fat, not having so much happen in between. Originally, they weren't going to give away the cinematography or the film editing Oscars on the night of. They were going to do it during a commercial break. But they decided against that after the backlash. And remember the Popular Film Award? How that didn't happen? So here, let me just summarize to hit some points what this Oscars really was. It was a few things. It was definitely the Academy trying to get people to notice them more. It was definitely trying to reverse the low ratings that have continued to happen over the last few years. And instead of adapting the Oscars to the modern day, like, I don't know, fucking live stream the goddamn thing, they just tried to have a mix of the old and the new, which is, I'll talk about the anti-Mauler movement if you want me to at some point, but that's not what we're talking about right now. Listen to my Oscar rant, Dragon, you fuck. This was the Oscars. We're going to give a bunch of stuff to 2 popular movies. Black Panther made $1.3 billion, and Bohemian Rhapsody made $850 million. Now $860 million. So let's give them a bunch of Oscars, because that's what the people want. Now let's ignore Infinity War, which made $2 billion and was loved, because that's not political enough. We need to give it to this important black film, and we need to give it to this film about a gay immigrant, as Rami Malek said in his speech. Because we all know that gay people are still just so oppressed. And women. The whole night was about women becoming second-class citizens. I guess we've gone backwards in history. We're like Marty McFly. We've all traveled back in time to a different era when women were oppressed, especially in Western civilization. So they basically gave everything to Bohemian Rhapsody because it's popular, even though it's a piece of shit film. Then they gave a bunch of stuff to Black Panther, which is also a piece of shit film. I have reviews up for both of those pieces of shit, and I believe I gave them both 5s out of 10. But in retrospect, I think Black Panther's more like a 4, and Bohemian Rhapsody's probably more like a 5.5. And then they, of course, gave a bunch of stuff to Roma, the critical darling, which nobody watched on Netflix, the overrated, boring as shit Roma from Alfonso Cuarón, a wonderful filmmaker, whose last 2 films, Gravity and this, I have not been a big fan of, even though if he had been winning for Children of Men and all that, I'd be like, fuck yeah, Alfonso. The guy has 4 fucking Academy Awards now. He's won Best Director twice, Best Film Editing, and Best Cinematography. Holy shit is this guy winning. Also with Iñárritu and Guillermo del Toro. So I guess if you're Hispanic this last decade, the Oscars is just going to suck your Hispanic dick. So they gave everything to all these popular films. And then I've been saying Green Book's going to win Best Picture for a long time. And I knew it was going to win Best Picture. That's just where the momentum was going. I will say, as a positive, even though Green Book is a very mediocre, predictable Oscar bait film, it is pretty cool to see Peter Farrelly, the director of Dumb and Dumber, There's Something About Mary, the still somehow underrated Kingpin, winning Oscars. To think about where his career went with The Heartbreak Kid, and just how was really considered sort of a hack, even though in a lot of ways he was a forefather of the Judd Apatow or Todd Phillips movement of film. Him now winning 2 Oscars for screenplay and Best Picture, I thought that was cool. It was really cool to see him up there. I thought he had very good tact in how he discussed what the movie was. Spike Lee had a funny comment about every time someone's driving someone he loses. He lost Do the Right Thing screenplay. Wasn't even nominated for Best Picture. To Driving Miss Daisy, and now he loses Best Picture to a film where they reverse the driving with a white man and a black man. Now, it's real. That was a funny comment. Although apparently Spike Lee was pissed Green Book won. Uncle Tom's Driver, and but Spike Lee did win Best Adapted Screenplay. He was up there dancing on the stage like a little troll that he is, and hugged Sam Jackson. And then he gave his impassioned speech that we have to do the right thing and vote in someone else that isn't Trump in 2020. You know, I went and saw Spike Lee, and I've told this story too many times. Back when I lived in a college town, he came to the university and spoke for 2 hours, and I went and saw Spike Lee, and I wasn't impressed. And after meeting Cusack, who worked with him on Chirac, which is a movie I like, it's very interesting to just feel this connection. This was the first time in my life that someone I had actually met and been around and won an Academy Award. So it was kind of a weird moment going into this week that I had met Cusack and the Spike Lee connection, and then seeing Spike Lee win the Oscar. Not that I'm trying to name drop, because who the fuck am I? But it was still very interesting. I don't know what they were thinking. It was like it was a mishmash. It was a well-produced Oscars. Like, the sets looked very nice. And I also think there was highlights. You know, Olivia Colman winning Best Actress over the frontrunner Glenn Close, or Lady Gaga, was well-deserved. The part where Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper sang Shallow, when they just walk off the stage and you don't even know it's coming, and them together, the chemistry, that was wonderful. It was very beautiful. Bradley Cooper is a solidified movie star at this point that we haven't had in a while. He's one of the newest movie stars to really feel like he's earned that status. And so that was all nice. And there was some funny bits, 1 or 2. But for the most part, it was drawn out political speeches of just verbal garbage. Nobody was saying anything. They kept just saying powerful women, black people, gay people, stuff we've been hearing for years now from the Academy. Although this was worse than before. These were really boring speeches. Way too many people thanking people going on. Luckily, the director of the show or whoever was fucking cutting it out, was just playing the music and cutting them out. It was annoying. It was very annoying watching this fucking show. Everybody's speeches were far too long. Nobody gave a good speech. Maybe there was 2 or 3 that were decent, but for the most part, it was very poor. The songs really didn't register for me. I thought that the music portion dragged out too much. The memorial's always the best part, just because you're like, oh, I feel sad. Burt Reynolds died. Jennifer Hudson came out and sang. I don't know when she's finally going to realize that we don't care about you. I don't care that you were like the 3rd runner-up in American Idol and you won an Oscar for Dreamgirls. Does anybody even remember Dreamgirls now? All you can do is fucking sing. One of the most overrated talents in all of the world, one of the most overrated things we celebrate and that have led to shows like American Idol or The Voice, is people who can sing. I don't give a fuck if you can sing. That doesn't make you Whitney Houston. That doesn't make you Mariah Carey. That doesn't make you Michael motherfucking Jackson. The thing about a great singer or a great artist and what makes them an auteur is the personality they bring to the voice and how their music is unique, the idiosyncratic nature of it. That person, that song, that's David Bowie. That's a Paul McCartney song. Just being able to sing and sing stuff that other people wrote and perform it well just makes you a glorified karaoke singer. Yet there's shows where people watch somebody win a competition where they just sing and then they go on to have no career. You have a few exceptions. You have like the Carrie Underwoods, but that's about it. These people, their talent is that they were born with a good singing voice. Do you know how many people I've met in my life who are great singers? I'm not kidding here. Thousands. Thousands of people I've met are phenomenal singers. There's probably millions of people that are great singers. Why do we celebrate this? And don't be like, what about opera? That's not the same fucking thing. That's not the same fucking thing at all. Fuck you, Jennifer Hudson. You're untalented, you're not that great of an actress, your career's gone nowhere, and you're singing at the Oscars, and there's always this grandeur like we're supposed to celebrate her. Nothing could make me hate my life more than her singing a song that was written for RBG. I mean, there's just nothing. There's nothing that could be cringier to me. Except maybe Bohemian Rhapsody winning for film editing. What the fuck was that about? I wish I could just edit that thing happening out of my life. Like, can I just edit out that winning the fucking Oscar? Holy goddamn. Cock shit. Stop celebrating people who can sing, okay? If you're a great guitarist, cool. If you're a great piano player, cool. But, like, that doesn't mean that you're writing great music, okay? Just play someone else's shit. You're in an orchestra. Good for you. You can play the violin. Well, I can jerk off. People don't come to watch me jerk off and see how good I am at stroking my own dick, which I'm very good at, by the way. So can we stop celebrating the singing thing? I just gotta say, what an overrated, shitty thing that people like to watch. Wow, look, that girl's got an amazing voice. Look at her sing that song. Wow. No, it's stupid. It's pointless. Anyway, back to the Oscars. So, yeah, no, Bohemian Rhapsody had bad editing. I don't want to be all Mauler here and be like, it objectively had bad editing. That's just silly. But it did. It had shit editing. The movie had a horrible flow. Like, maybe the transitions were cute. But Jesus Christ. It's like Black Panther winning for best score. Or just shit like that. Like... Yeah, of course people got pissed, yeah.
Because it's a white savior movie. White savior means family.
Yes, I Am 7 from The Umbrella Academy, written by Gerard Way, former lead singer of My Chemical Romance. So it was just, the first half hour had some momentum. Although Adam Lambert has a horrible, horrible singing voice. Where every note has to be big. I have no control. Coming out with Queen. They are really trying to capitalize on Queen. I've never seen such a cynical bastardization of something great as I have recently in the last few months of Freddie Mercury and Queen. I find it disgusting. I can't believe Razorfist hasn't made a video on this. Holy shit.
Why you guys always picking on me, man?
It's fucking disgusting. It's hard to, but like, okay, let's say Freddie Mercury's dead. Everybody loves Queen music, right? So the fact that the whole reason this film's made money is because people love Queen. And just that, like, my mom's like, I really liked it. I'm like, of course you did. It's just like a sing-along. It's like, wow, I want to sing along to these songs. That's what the trailer was. That's what the movie was. And then they start the fucking Oscars with We Are the Champions. Well, they start with We Will Rock You and We Are the Champions with Queen there, with Adam Lambert. And everyone's like, fuck yeah. Even the commercials used Queen music. They had Freddie Mercury, the whole thing. So the Oscars are trying to capitalize this. They're like, well, that movie made a lot of money because people like Queen. So let's make this whole show about Queen. Like, you wish it was a great movie. Also notice nobody mentioned Bryan Singer, although I think it was on the tip of Rami Malek's tongue. Mr. Robot wanted to mention it. He wanted to be like, come on, man. But Freddie Mercury's death, they are pissing on his grave. All of the money they made off that movie, all of the money Brian May has made off that movie, all of the people trying to capitalize on this, and now the Oscars being like, well, that was popular. We need young people to watch this. We need people to like this. Let's celebrate the Queen. Hated it. Hated how much they used Queen throughout the awards show. It was very obvious what they were doing, and it bothered me profoundly. Going further than that, just this overabundance of love for movies like BlacKkKlansman and Black Panther, which are at best mediocre. I feel bad for Freddy, even though he's dead and he doesn't exist anymore. It bothers me so much. I really don't like how they're just using Queen's music. And then now Elton John, Rocket Man's coming out, and it looks like the same shit. It's upsetting. I can't. They even had Mike Myers and Dana Carvey come out in the Wayne's World thing. It's like, oh my god. We just go through cycles as a culture, don't we? Every 10 years, it's something that we've already done before. Time is a flat circle. What you do, you will do again. As Matthew McConaughey holds a cigarette like it's a joint because he's clearly never smoked a cigarette in his life. We just go back to loving Queen again in these same songs. We just go back every decade. We're just back to where we were in the 70s or in the 90s or where we're at now. Although Rami Malek did have a funny line, I guess it worked out. And I love Rami Malek. Let me make this clear. I think he's brilliant on Mr. Robot. It's cool seeing him win an Oscar. But fuck that movie. Fuck everything that went on with this show. It had some energy in the first half hour. It really petered out halfway through. In the last hour, I was falling asleep. That shit got fucking boring. That got so boring. The last, hour of this Oscars, it still ran over 3.5 hours. And then Amy Poehler made a really dumb comment. The beginning with Amy Poehler, Tina Fey, and Maya Rudolph was funny. But Amy Poehler said, I don't believe supporting actors because women naturally support each other. It's like, what world do you live in where women naturally support each other? What fucking alternate Twilight Zone universe did we go in? Was Jordan Peele doing a Twilight Zone episode? Also, why is Jordan Peele just all gray now? He turned into Gandalf. It's pretty fascinating. But this, this whole thing, what the fuck was I talking about? Oh yeah, that thing about they just naturally support each other. It's like, since when? I mean, I'm being anecdotal here, but in my experiences, that's not true at all. And nobody really naturally supports each other. Everybody's kind of against each other. It's hard to even get in a group or to make genuine friends or have a good relationship that lasts a long time, that has longevity. What the fuck was she talking about? No, they don't. In fact, I'd say it's the opposite. I say they're at each other's throats all the time and competitive. Yeah, exactly. At least Mean Girls got in the psychology of that. Heathers. So yeah, boring, dull, uneventful. Clearly them trying to be populist with what they gave the awards to. Safe choices, nothing bold. Still dragged on, and the lack of a host for transitions in between the categories was honestly felt. So my review for this current Academy Awards and the 2019 or whatever, I give it a 3 out of 10. Not very good. I didn't like it. And yeah, Us does look great. I agree with you. Us has a great trailer, and I'm very excited for it. So that's where we're at with the Academy Awards. They somehow... It made me... It was everything I thought I wanted. Trying to have a quicker pace and not focusing on so many sketches and all that stuff. But it somehow was worse. I kind of missed the 4-hour show and the bad monologue by the host and it being a little boring. I realized I kind of missed the old Academy Awards in the way it used to be. So let's make the Academy Awards great again, shall we? Anyway, let's get to the fucking box office. Where do we start? Let's talk about... fuck Bumblebee. Let's talk about The Favorite, which won, I only think, 1 or 2 Oscars last night. It's actually doing pretty well, all things considered. Very critically acclaimed. $32 million domestic, which isn't great, but that worldwide total of $83 million, I would say this film's definitely made a profit. So it's the first really successful film from this director. Bohemian Rhapsody continues to be a huge hit. $213 million domestic on a $52 million budget, $860 million worldwide. This film almost made $900 million. Really, with its budget, you could compare this to a $1 billion film. This is easily, in my mind, the most successful film of 2018, just with all the factors considered, from Bryan Singer, who was not mentioned last night. Vice continues to be a bomb. $60 million budget from Adam McKay, $47 million domestic, $63 million worldwide. They have not broke even yet. And I don't think that won makeup last night, which it was deserving. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Oh yeah, I didn't even mention this. It was wonderful to see Phil Lord and Chris Miller win an Oscar. How fucking poetic was that? These were the guys that had made 21 Jump Street, 22 Jump Street, the Lego Movie, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, created the brilliant Clone High, worked on How I Met Your Mother, and they were fired from Solo a few weeks before production was done. Before filming was wrapped up, they were fired by Kathleen fucking Kennedy, the witch. And here we are, year later, they release the most acclaimed Spider-Man film ever, one of the best reviewed superhero films ever. It wins the Best Animated Feature Oscar. Solo is a bomb. I don't even hate Solo, but Ron Howard Solo is a bomb. $250 million, $370 million worldwide, total bomb. First Star Wars film to be a flat-out bomb. And Kathleen Kennedy, she didn't like the way they folded their socks. She did not like Phil Lord and Chris Miller. They were batting heads with Lawrence Kasdan in a screenplay, shooting parts of it, but then shooting their own things and improvising. So we never got to see the Phil Lord, Chris Miller version of Solo. So that bombs. They come out looking great. Star Wars is in just like the worst spot it's ever been in, creatively, financially. They bounce back with this movie, this gem that goes to their roots. There's Clone High all in this thing. There's stamps all over it. And motherfucking Phil Lord and Chris Miller, who are a dynamic duo, much like the Russos, having a string of successes, coming off this huge firing, bounce back. Who wins an Oscar? Not Rian Johnson. Not J.J. Abrams. These guys. They win the Oscar for Best Animated Feature. Their roots are in animation. Seeing them go up there and give their speech, they felt like Hollywood royalty. It was perfect. Just like seeing Peter Farrelly win was very moving to me in a very personal way. Seeing Phil Lord and Chris Miller win after everything that had happened with Disney and them going to Sony, this makes Sony look so awesome. This really reflects on Solo that they probably 99% chance should have went with what they made. Even if they didn't like it, maybe sometimes you're just wrong. Because Kathleen Kennedy thought The Last Jedi was good. So I think it's pretty safe to say she can be pretty fucking wrong. So kudos to Phil Lord and Chris Miller. I couldn't be happier for them, and now they're going to continue to have a fruitful career in Hollywood. I hope they get to make a sequel to this movie, and it was awesome to see them win. The Incredibles won Brad Bird for Best Animated Feature years ago, 14, 15 years ago for The Incredibles, and now these guys have won, and they beat Brad Bird for his terrible sequel, The Incredibles 2. So it's great to see that stuff in Hollywood. You don't get to see it much. I mean, it was almost like a fuck you, because you know they hate Kathleen Kennedy. This has been established. You know they're pissed that they wasted months of their life making this goddamn movie. Years, probably. And then they get to make this thing that they spent years on, and they get the award for it. This film is not a bomb. You just don't get to see that too much. So that was awesome poetry. It's like poetry, it rhymes. You know, it rhymes. Yeah, and now they're standing on Disney stage on ABC. No, I don't think J.J. Abrams is to blame totally at all. I totally agree with you on that. Definitely Patrick Willems. Yeah, I'm glad too. I thought they were just going to hand it over to Disney. It's just great. Phil and Chris Miller started. I mean, they basically kicked off Sony Animation with Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. Skip. Let's go to Glass, which is the final film in the trilogy by M. Night Shyamalan and Ding Dong. $20 million budget, which is way too low. This movie should have had a bigger budget. Hurt the film. $40 million opening weekend. It has passed $100 million. $107 million domestic. $240 million worldwide. Let's look at the trilogy. Now, adjusted for ticket price inflation, Unbreakable would have made about $160 million, split about $141 million. But worldwide, let's check this out. Unbreakable 248, which Glass should pass, and Split 278. I don't know if Glass will be able to reach that Split 2 at 78. Certainly domestically, it won't reach the 138. But still, a trilogy of all three films making over $200 million, and he paid for Split and this film himself. So M. Night's making a lot of money despite the bad reviews and mixed audience reception. I mean, imagine if this film had actually been great. Like, if this had actually been the film it could have been, what a good idea for a movie. I'd say this film could have made $150 million domestic and like $400 million worldwide. This is still a successful film because the budget's so low, but if M. Night Shyamalan would have actually got his shit together and made a good movie, and they would have put the money into this like they should have, like $50-60 million, I think this would have easily been a $400 to $450 million worldwide film. But still, overall, very successful, a successful trilogy. M. Night has a successful trilogy now. His career is not over, even though this is getting, you know, bad reviews, and it's back to where he kind of was. Financially, he's perfectly fine, and he should continue to have a career after this, and maybe people actually want to fund his movies now and not make him pay for them. I don't know why you think there was a risk on Split, and then especially on this movie. I think M. Night's ready now to get another shot, and I get how he fucked it up. Once you started giving him money, things got bad. And then you get Lady in the Water and The Last Airbender. But I think at least from a financial standpoint, and that's what Box Office Addict's about, it's about the numbers, because the numbers don't lie. I think he's earned his right to another big budget movie. So can you give this man a big budget and let him make something? Because clearly he still has an audience. So yeah, Glass should be able to pass $250 million worldwide and $110 million domestic. Good for it. Green Book has become a sleeper hit, which many expected because audiences like it. Now it's won Best Picture, so it'll get that boost. Starring the great Viggo Mortensen. And, I always have a time saying this guy. Is it Marshala Ali? I think it's like Marshala Ali. Sorry, I have a hard time saying it. I don't know why, because I actually know how it's pronounced in my head. But $23 million budget from Peter Farrelly, and this is really a bounce back for him. And Ali's been on True Detective. He just won an Oscar a few years ago for Moonlight. Now he wins another Oscar for this film. $5 million opening weekend, but here we are, 69 dudes. $69 million domestic. Should be able to make 75 to 80 million. 144 million worldwide. Should be able to make 150. I'd say 170s, very likely. So with the budget and everything considered, this is a very successful movie. And now it's won 3 Oscars, so pretty much everything's going its way. I predicted for the last few months it was going to win Best Picture. I don't think Roma had a shot at it. I knew Cuarón was going to win Director. Barely wasn't even nominated. But Green Book's kind of been the front runner in my mind for a while. Run to Race, 2.2 million. All right. That happened. Let's see. The Upside, which is now just a full-blown hit. Not quite as successful as the original film, which made over $400 million worldwide. From Neil Berger here, Bryan Cranston, Kevin Hart. But man, Kevin Hart, they should have really let him host because his career has not taken a hit here. And this Bryan Cranston's really first big hit where he's like a lead in a movie. $37.5 million budget. This film will pass $100 million. Great word of mouth on this. Had a $20 million opening weekend. Great holds. $110 million worldwide. This film's definitely going to make a profit. Just look at these drops. 26, 9, 20, 27, 18, 22, 8. This was the first week I actually had a pretty big drop. But this should end up to 105 to 115 million. And we'll have to wait on the international numbers. But very successful film. And it's a nice kind of middle finger to the Academy. Cold Pursuit. $27 million domestic, $35 million worldwide from Liam Neeson. Happy Death Day to You. Is not doing nearly as well as the original film did. $9 million budget, $42 million worldwide. The first film made $55 million domestic and $125 million worldwide. Although Escape Room's actually doing very well. It made $120 million worldwide. What Men Want, which I guess is a flip on What Women Want, I'm assuming. $45 million domestic, $49 million worldwide. Doing okay with its modest budget. Not a bomb. Isn't It Romantic? $7.5 million this weekend. Starring the great Rebel Wilson. $14 million opening weekend, $33 million domestic. She's just really not having that career they think she should have. Fighting with My Family opened $8 million. Starring The Rock and Nick Frost and Vince Vaughn. This film is, I would say, a bomb. The Lego Movie 2, which I didn't get to talk about yet, opened at #1 a few weeks ago. Had a disappointing opening weekend. This was not directed by Phil Lord and Chris Miller, although they did write on this film, but it does bring back the voice cast. Decent reviews. Rotten Tomatoes says 86%. The first Lego Movie, let's go check that out. I believe it opened at, opened to 69 million, made 470 million worldwide. Also, with them winning for Spider-Verse, did anyone feel like it was kind of like they were saying, sorry, we didn't give you the Oscar for Lego Movie, which they weren't even nominated for? Like, everyone thought they were the front runners for that Oscar. So I guess this was kind of like making amends, like, hey, we're sorry we didn't give you the Oscar for Lego Movie. This was kind of supposed to turn into a successful franchise. We had the Lego Batman movie, which made 175 mil domestic, over 300 million worldwide, but then the Lego Ninja movie bombed, and I think they just oversaturated this. I think they should have waited to make the sequel instead of just cashing in on all these Lego films. This was a very successful, critically acclaimed film. Now, the second film's not getting bad reviews, but clearly the hype was not there, despite having Chris Pratt and everyone back. The opening weekend of 34 million is a big drop. It's not nearly as good as the opening weekend for the Lego Batman movie or the Lego movie. The second week hold was really good, but this hold in the third weekend, 51% is a big drop. This will only make a little bit more than 100 million. This will not be nearly a success. I mean, you got to think the first one made $257 million domestically. This only making 110, 120 is a big steep drop. I think the budget on this is 80 million. So far, 136 million worldwide. These Lego movies don't do big internationally. So I guess the hope with this is that it can make 300 million worldwide and then it'll be successful. But I don't know if Lego Movie 3 is going to be happening. Disappointing opening weekend. What happened with this? Did they oversaturate it? And I don't know. Was the marketing just not there? I thought the marketing wasn't there. I thought this was a very poorly marketed sequel. And they just don't have the hook. Like, everything is awesome. The song and everything going its way. You know. Anyone else think Alita should have been 3 hours long? Probably. Yeah, I think the novelty really wore off. Unfortunately, because it was a good novelty. And Fuller and Chris Miller, you know, maybe they're spreading themselves a little too thin. They were working on Solo, Spider-Man, and the Lego movie sequels, and they're producing and writing all this. Maybe they need to focus on one movie at a time. What makes Twilight Princess a masterpiece? The fact that it's such a long, dense game. I mean, 70 hours or something like that, and it doesn't have many flaws in it. There's not too many glitches or a lot of fat. The fact that it's such a lean game at that length is what makes it sort of one of the great modern games, I think. To put it very simply, I think, is the argument I would make. Yeah, I didn't know the release either. Yeah, maybe Lego Movie 2 should have been a summer movie, like this summer. They had success with the first one in the early part of the year, but yeah, and the Ninja, they did not need to make Ninjago. I mean, just a bunch of bad decisions. The Lego Batman movie wasn't a bad idea, and it's a very entertaining, fun movie. I like that movie. But the Lego Movie 2, the second part, which is funny part, or they could have called it the second piece. I don't know. I just think they didn't market it well. They didn't build hype for it. I don't know. I mean, my favorite in order would probably be Link to the Past. And then surprisingly, even though a lot of people, I think, although they reevaluated it, I think Wind Waker's great. Miyazaki-esque. And then I would probably go Ocarina of Time or Twilight Princess. Yeah, of course, Final Fantasy VI is totally a masterpiece. I mean, it's right there with Chrono Trigger as arguably the best JRPG ever made. It's right there. It's so dense. There's so much going on. Yeah, the music's great. I mean, what do you want me to say? What hasn't been said about Twilight Princess, really? Kill the past if you have to. Yeah, Link to the Past is great. I hope you guys have been liking the new videos. There's kind of been a, you know, I don't know if you noticed, me and Terrible Lizard are kind of leaning more on the TV screen thing. And they're supposed to be a little bit, we're kind of trying to lean more on the Please Rewind premise that Pat is reflecting on movies he watched or the VHS era. We're kind of trying to make the aesthetics more that way in the movies we're picking. I guess a lot of people might think that Terrible Lizard just kind of does anything, everything without me having any input, but that's actually not true. The Brody clip from Mallrats of him saying, "Damn, that's hot," which I wish he would have used more. That was me. The TV screen thing is really me. A lot of those things are me. I'm not saying that Terrible Lizard doesn't do like 90% of the work because he does, but I want people to know that my stamp is still on of a lot of those videos that he's worked on. A lot of suggestions from me and structural ideas. It's a collaboration. I don't want people to think that I just like send him audio and he does whatever he wants. I have input on it. I tell him what kind of clips I would like him to use. We just have a chemistry, though. One thing I do love about him is that he does do his own thing that I'm not expecting. Like, I didn't know he was going to do the Will Smith clip at the end. That's fucking brilliant. But that's the great thing. He knows how to fix my flaws. I really don't like my recording on the private lessons video. I think it could have been much funnier, but he always finds a way to kind of save it. I also think it's probably about 3 or 5 minutes too long. I think it needed to be a little tighter. I don't think we're ever going to top the dating advice video, at least anytime soon. But it is a collaboration. I usually have the video in my head, and he just kind of just gets it when I want. And he's just great. He finds visual comedy. He's such a great visualist, where I perhaps lack that. Even though I think I'm a pretty decent editor. Watch my Lost in Translation video. He has a knack for visual comedy. And he finds a way to, like the dating advice video, him thinking about the list was so brilliant. To make it visually come alive that way, that you're seeing this list, and it's almost like as an editor, he's battling my rant. And the same thing with the private lessons video, that he knew to kind of like structure it that way with me setting and being a teenager and watching the television and using the television, the Please Rewind television. Which is probably going to be more the format of where we're going to go. I do need to do a Roma review at some point, even though it came out months ago and nobody cares, but I would like to do a review of Roma. That's one I've been planning for a while. So Lego Movie 2, disappointing box office all around. Kind of got lost in the shuffle. Bad release date, bad marketing, and just didn't really have a gimmick. The gimmick of the first movie was, this is a Lego movie. What was really the selling point on this one outside of it's just more of the same? Alita, Battle Angel. Wow, this is the big one. Let's talk about Robert Rodriguez here and James Cameron. James Cameron worked on this for years. He wrote a screenplay that was 180 pages. This was a film he wanted to make for, 20 years, which is based off an awesome manga, by the way. I highly recommend reading Battle Angel. He passed on it to make the Avatar sequels, even though they still used remnants of his screenplay. So it was passed off to Sin City, Spy Kids, Desperado director Robert Rodriguez, who I think has only made, in my mind, like 3 decent movies. Very good visual director, but always had a problem with writing and all that stuff. Always rooted for him, but he just never really pulled it off, even though I think he's a very talented filmmaker. I mean, El Mariachi is clearly a great piece of filmmaking. The fact that he made it for $7,000. I mean, it's like watching The Evil Dead, except for action movies instead of horror. So I celebrate Rodriguez because he's very important to independent film. And he seems like a really cool guy. I love that he wears a fucking cowboy hat. But unfortunately, this just didn't work out. The film did overperform. A lot of people thought this was going to be an outright bomb. A lot of people thought this film was going to open to like $15 million and just be a bomb. It's not an outright bomb. It did overperform on opening weekend. $28 million is higher than anyone expected. It had, I think it opened a few days, so it ended up making like $40 million. So $60 million domestic so far, $263 million worldwide, $170 million budget. Now, for this thing to make some money, it's going to have to make like $500 million worldwide. And to get a sequel, I would say it would have to do better than that. I would say $600 million. And where it's going right now, I don't think that's going to end up happening. The problem here is word of mouth just isn't that great. The reviews are mixed at best. There was a hope this was going to be a critically acclaimed great film and Robert Rodriguez's, return to form. But it's just not there. Something happened. Maybe they cut too much. Maybe it just was too much of a troubled production, but overperformed on its opening weekend. Now it's right, $33 million over its first few days. 42 right there. But a 57% drop in your next weekend, $12 million. I mean, that's bad. The number 60 million looks pretty good, but that's just because of those first few days. So the next 2 or 3 weeks, this is going to be done. It's going to be scratching to get to 100 million. It should be able to make 100 million, but just barely. This could even end up in the 90s. And that's not going to put it anywhere close to its budget. Let's not include marketing. And I think the budget's actually higher than this. I think this film probably cost over $200 million. So every time James Cameron produces something, or sort of involved with it. It doesn't really go anywhere, like Strange Days, movies like that. Except for maybe Rambo 2. I mean, that made a shitload of fucking money. Holy crap, 300 million worldwide. That was the year of Stallone. That movie and Rocky 4 came out in the same year and both made $300 million. That's a fucking movie star. So James Cameron's working on 12 Avatar sequels. And here we are. Yeah, just decent opening weekend, better than expected, but not a great opening weekend. It's only in the context that it's a decent opening weekend. Really, this should have opened to like 68, $75 million, because with its budget, I mean, this has the budget of a Marvel movie, is barely going to make 100 mil domestic. It should be able to make 400 million worldwide, I think, with where it's going. But even at that point, I don't think that's the break-even point, just because you have to include marketing. So it's hard to call this a flop, but it's a financial disappointment. It's a critical disappointment. It's a kick to the nuts of James Cameron's career. Robert Rodriguez has not bounced back from his just kind of like non-popularity. I mean, really, think about how bad Sin City 2 did and Machete Kills, even though the first Machete did okay. And then Spy Kids, that franchise, the first Spy Kids made 112 million, the second one made 85 million, 3D made 111 million. But he's just had an up and down career. Adjusted for ticket price inflation, his most successful film is Spy Kids with 180 million. All the Spy Kids movies. Sin City would have made 100 million now. And Sin City was honestly a pretty successful film. Made about 160 million worldwide. Desperado and all that. Let's check worldwide. Even though Alita is now his biggest film worldwide. Once Upon a Time in Mexico did well. $98 million on a $29 million budget. Even though that's a terrible movie. God, is that a bad movie. What a cool idea for a movie, too, though. Like Johnny Depp in that movie. That's some cool shit. Thing with the arm, but yeah, not really. Oh god, Shorts, I forgot about that. God, when he makes those kids movies, and talk about Spy Kids not holding up. Spy Kids has 93% Rotten Tomatoes. Grindhouse was a bomb. Machete really honestly didn't even do that great when you think about it, even though it was fun. So he's never really been a major director outside of the Spy Kids movies. Those are his like biggest claim to fame because they were cheap. Like $38 million budget, and it made $120 million worldwide. The first Spy Kids cost $35 million and made $150 million worldwide. So he's had some successes, but once again, this was just not the film. Even though, once again, very talented director visually. I've always said that Rod Rodriguez is a great technical filmmaker. I don't think he's great with narrative. I think the best thing he ever made was Sin City, which was Frank Miller's writing. And I think after that, it's probably From Dusk Till Dawn, and that's Quentin Tarantino. Everything else I don't think is that great. It's impressive, some of it, but that's about it. Unfortunate, though. I wish this movie was great. I have no ill will towards anyone involved. I wish this film had 90% on Rotten Tomatoes. I wish it could have made $800 million and we all loved it. But it's kind of what we all knew in the back of our minds was going to happen, didn't we? A film that took this long to get made. Cameron not being the director. I think it's all very telling. I think we all kind of felt this was going to happen. The controversy with the trailers and her design and the eyes. And you see the girls playing her, and she's actually very beautiful. It's unfortunate they went this route with it. So you just see all this, and you're like, yeah, it was never going to be that movie that made, that made the big bucks and caught the world by surprise. Maybe if Cameron had made it, it might have been that film, because it's really hard to doubt James Cameron at this point. We keep doubting him, and then every time he makes a new movie, it becomes a James Cameron movie. But yeah, just looking at everything here, yeah, this is unfortunate. I was rewatching Terminator 2 recently, and talk about a film that fucking holds up visually. Like, goddamn, is that a good-looking movie? And clearly he had been watching Hong Kong cinema and John Woo films and was clearly inspired by it when he approached that film, and it's awesome. But yeah, unfortunate. It's unfortunate this film is kind of just a disappointment all around. And people, overall, it's just kind of looked at as mediocre. Mediocre financially, mediocre from a quality standpoint. Maybe it'll get a cult following down the road like films such as this usually do. But as far as I can tell, this is just kind of one of those blockbusters that's going to come and go. Sort of like a Prince of Persia, if you will. But too bad. Really too bad. Unfortunate for everyone. Good cast. Talented people involved. A lot of time and money spent on this. A lot of special effects artists worked on this movie. And it does have good special effects, but that's about all it's really got going for it, is the gimmick of the visuals. What they missed out on, what they forgot, was to really connect, to really break out. You have to have a heart. And Alita, through her artificiality, unfortunately, lacks a heart. Those eyes, those big, beautiful, fake CGI eyes are the movie. You can see them, but really they're blind. They're blind to what makes a good story and to what gets audiences to connect with something. So that's unfortunate. The battle was fought, and nobody really wins. Nobody really wins in this. Yeah, Terminator's his tightest film. Oh, Razor Fist can be really touchy. No question, he's very sensitive. He blocked me because he was saying Blade Runner 2049 was getting bad reviews now, and people had turned on it, said it sucked, and I was pointing out to him that wasn't true, and showing him that the ratings overall were still high, and it ended up winning 2 Oscars, and he blocked me because of that, and I was like, you like to take, and I called him out, I said, you like to take credit when Force Awakens came out and The Last Jedi. He even said in his Last Jedi, but I was right. And I go, Max Landis said all the things you said. We all said this the first week it came out. You were not the first person that predicted the Force Awakens thing. He acts like he's got some, like, he can see into the future. And I was just pointing out, like, no, dude, everyone said that about Force Awakens and was worried about Last Jedi. Immediately, the day it came out, Max Landis said the Mary Sue thing. You weren't the first person to say negative things about Force Awakens. You weren't the only person making the predictions of what would happen, and he was just trying to act like 2049 was just horrible and everyone was hating it now. And I'm pretty mixed on 2049 as time's going on, to be honest, but he was trying to say that the critics had reappraised it, and that just wasn't true. And I was pointing that, like, no, dude, it's still very popular on Rotten Tomatoes. It's still got like an 8.1 on IMDb. A lot of people still like, particularly on YouTube, most reviewers love it. And he blocked me outright for that. And it wasn't the first time we'd gotten a Twitter spat. One time we fought over Ben Shapiro. And another time we went at it about some radio show in the shadow, because he has these things where I used to test it with Razor. And let me make this clear. I'm a Razor Fist fan. I love his content. I think he makes good fucking content. But I tested this. I would say positive things to him on Twitter, or compliment him or ask him a question, and he would never answer. Every time you say something negative, or and I would do this intentionally. I'd be like, okay, well, let me play this. He'll always respond to you. If you ever want Razor Fist to respond to you on Twitter, just say something slightly negative, and he'll come back, and he'll say vacuous rejoinder, which he said to me more than once, which is laughable, because that's a meme with him now. It's like when he says nomenclature. But vacuous rejoinder, which he said to me. And if you just go out with him without anything, he'll come at you. He'll do it in his comment section on his videos. If you say something slightly disagree with him, he'll rant at you. And then usually he'll delete that comment, or he'll delete the tweet. Because he's actually very sensitive. Kind of a punk. Kind of a bitch. You know, he likes to put on this badass metal persona, and like he could give you a verbal ass beating. And you think he could, because verbally he's one of the best people on YouTube. His public speaking skills and his vocabulary are incredible. I mean, really. And he's very funny and intelligent. But you can tell it in his debate with Kyle on the Drunken Peasants podcast, how he just got shit on when he had to be live and do things on the spot. It was embarrassing to watch. And I don't agree with Kyle at all. And that was unfortunate. And then, yeah, on Twitter, if you kind of go at him, he'll just follow his same patterns. You realize that he's kind of a limited book, that he is very entertaining and well-researched and honestly, one of my favorite YouTubers. But when you get him in the moment, even though I've heard him be great on live streams, he was great on World Class Bullshitters and stuff. But you get him in the moment, and his channel's been growing. I mean, he's going to have 200,000 subs. He's been getting more popular. He's been around for a decade. I remember when I first subbed to Razor Fist, he had like 60,000 subscribers. That was a few years ago. He's huge now, but if you go back at him, or if he's got to confront you live, he can't do it. And he goes into a shell. He falls back on his typical things that he said before. And then eventually he'll just block you. Which he has every right to do. I'm not against blocking. I'm pro-blocking. I made a video about that. You have every right to fucking block people if they annoy you. Why the fuck is there a stigma about blocking? But at the same time, you know, he's clearly not very good at taking the challenge or debating people. He's very poor at debating. And he's clearly insecure about his status as a conservative commentator. And he always tries to inform you that he was in radio or an internet radio and that he was a political science major and all that stuff. Like I'm supposed to be impressed. You know how many friends I have who have a degree in political science? One of the easiest fucking majors in the world. That's like being an English major. Suck my dick. Are you fucking kidding? I would sleepwalk through a political science course. So no thank you, Razor. Great content, great YouTuber. Great opinions on comic books and all that stuff. Really, really a big fan. But as a person, I think there's a lot of insecurity. I think there's a lot of that hidden, that he's just kind of a nerd. A metal hipster fag, if you want. God, I even agree with him on Michael Jackson. I love Michael Jackson as much as he does. It sucks. Like, I love Michael Jackson. I love that he makes videos on Michael Jackson. It's great. I love so much about him, but in reality, he's just kind of, he's sort of a coward. And that really stings because you don't want him to be a coward, because his whole persona is built on, like, just having balls. And really, he feels like a coward. And that blocking, I saw it coming, but it was also disappointing. It was like, man, you should have just beat me down so much that I have to submit to you, but you just went with the easiest outcome possible, and that's just avoid it. Avoid the fact that I was using actual numbers and proof to kind of counter what you were saying. And instead of explaining to me where you're coming from, he just blocks me and acts like I don't exist. Although our paths might cross. Let's remember, Sargon watches my channel. I've been on World Class Bullshitters, which Razor's friends with. He was on a stream with Mauler. So perhaps me and Razor will end up on a live stream together one day. Who knows what'll happen? The future is not set. So that's exciting. Maybe one day I'll get to talk to him. Although, once again, I'm a fan. So it's kind of this tough, the dichotomy of it's really tough, because I'm a fan of him. I watch all of his videos. I like him a lot. But I feel like he doesn't respect his audience or respect alternate points of view as he likes to present himself in that way that maybe he does. I don't think he does. I think that his ego is perhaps his biggest downfall, unfortunately. And it's image versus integrity. And I think image matters more to him than his integrity. But that's YouTube, my friends. That's YouTube, folks. That's YouTube, folks, okay? All right? That's where it goes. So that's what always happens. I don't know why I just went on a whole rant about that. Yeah, the angry Mauler. That's true. Yeah, a political science major. I mean, poli sci is one of the I mean, it's embarrassing that he brags about that. That he acts like we're supposed to be impressed with that. It's like, what? Dude, are you kidding? Like, fuck, man. I mean, I went to college. I did poli sci. It's like, are you kidding, man? That shit's easy. That's like being a philosophy major. What are you talking about? Nothing about that's impressive. I'm more impressed with how many books you've read and how knowledgeable he is in his own academic way. That he did, not through his background, but clearly the guy is very well read. That's what's impressive about Razor Fist. You know, that is his own self-taught stuff. It's not the... I could give a fuck about him doing internet radio or being or that he watched Blade Runner every day for a year. I could give a fuck about that. It's more yeah, it's just it's a tough thing. I mean it's every metalhead I've ever been friends with is the same thing. Unfortunately, it's the predictable journey you have when you go down the rabbit hole with metalheads. It sucks because I wish one day a metalhead could surprise me. But it has yet to happen. Oh yeah, Brie Larson's definitely stupid. Is it better to be than to seem to be? Hey, I mean, that's cool, man. If you want to, I mean, philosophy's fun. I'm not gonna act like it's not fun. Well, I mean, I was into that shit. I loved Alan Watts, and Doomcock's a fan of that, which I did not know. I'd like to talk to him about that, but I get it, man. But I don't know. Razor Fist blocked me, basically. I would say, and he would never admit this, but it would take a big person to admit this, because I could admit something like this, that I had a point, and maybe I came at it a little childish. Maybe I should have had more tact in how I came back at him, but Typically, when someone blocks you, I find it's because the person had a point. I think he blocked me because he was getting annoyed with me, but I'd also say that I had a point, and that bothered him a little bit. And I think if he could have a little introspective nature, if he could self-reflect on it, he'd say, maybe he had a point in the moment. Maybe I don't have a point overall. But in that moment, I might have had a point that, like, no, you're trying to give yourself a little bit too much credit. And and that would be my thing. The eyes were cameras I did to begin with. Should have ditched. Yes, they should have totally ditched the idea with the eyes. Yeah. I think that was definitely... It's okay to spam, bro. I only saw It Comes at Night once, and I thought it was alright. I thought it was a little dull, but that it had interesting details. Yeah, Doomcock, I think he said you'd have me on at some point. The anti-Mauler movement. I mean, of course, this is what always happens, right? A YouTuber gets popular and starts to get a fan base. Like, think about how big Mauler's become. Mauler's becoming one of the big movie channels. And the fact is, he's kind of started this. He's directly challenged other YouTubers. He went at H-Bomber guy. He went at Folding Ideas in his Last Jedi videos. He's attacked the entire essay community, the film analysis community for the most part, and where their content's at. So he's just thrown the gauntlet down, basically, the Infinity Gauntlet, if you will. And so this is just the natural progression of things. You have to punch up. You know, this was a guy that had like 2,000 subscribers when I first started watching him. And then now he has over 100,000, and he's clearly going to be a channel with 200, 300,000 subs. People are using his videos for the argument. And even I even think his Last Jedi videos are the definitive Last Jedi videos. And he's just huge. So now that he's gotten so big, smaller YouTubers like Jack Saint, you have to punch up. You start going after him. So you can grow your channel. I mean, that's what people do on YouTube. If you want to be a smart YouTuber, if you really want to know how to grow your YouTube channel, and it's something I don't really do, and it's been detrimental to me, you go after other people. You go after other YouTubers. You make videos about other YouTubers. You attack them directly. You try to start confrontations with them. Beyond that, too, you follow trends that are happening on YouTube. All of these things will lead to a very successful YouTube channel. If you can make it work. Obviously, you still have to be good. You still have to be able to be funny and make things work. But this is yeah, Mauler's very articulate. You know, and it's funny because he really lacks film knowledge. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about him. He hasn't seen anything. He hasn't seen, like, any movies. He doesn't know anything about filmmakers or, you know, I mean, it's really, for how big of a channel he's got, a movie channel, he's really uninformed. Like, he doesn't know a lot about movies, but he's so smart. He can make such good arguments just by watching something. He doesn't need that background. A lot of people lean on that. They try to name drop. They're like, I know this filmmaker. I know Fellini. I know Romer. I know Rossellini. I like David Lynch. I like Tarkovsky, you know? I'd say Your Movie Sucks is a perfect example of that kind of channel where Adam himself, while a very entertaining guy, I think leans so much on, I've seen all these art house films, and I like this kind of film, and I bring up shot composition in my reviews, thus I'm an expert, so thus I'm well-informed, and you'll see people say that in the comments section, even though, really, he's not saying anything that you don't hear from, like, a college freshman, and I don't think he's ever evolved past that, unfortunately. Which is sad, because I do think he could grow. In the same way, like, Red Letter Media just keeps evolving with age. Adam's kind of been stagnant the last few years. Mauler doesn't lean on that. He just makes arguments based off what he's seeing and how he felt about a screenplay and his own thoughts on what is objective in arguments when it comes to art and stuff like that. He's just kind of found his own way, and I really like that. And seeing him grow like that has been really interesting. But people are strangely defensive about The Last Jedi. I've never seen people be so blindly defensive over a movie. People say, I've never seen so much hate for a movie like this. I'm like, there's only this amount of hate because you guys are so blindly, like, defensive. Like, you're so angry that people could say there's problems with this movie. I don't think he's poisoning at all. I think that we needed this. I think we needed to have the collision. There is no dark secret. Unfortunately, I'm kind of amazing. One of the biggest problems is that I don't really do shitty things in my life, so there's not much to call me out for except for me being a fucking idiot. I mean, the objectivity in art's tough. I like David Stewart's point on it. I think David Stewart, and I would like to talk to David Stewart about this in the future, and Mauler. I like what David Stewart said. I think it was better worded. David Stewart's point on the objective thing, and Jack Saint, by the way, what an overrated YouTuber. Jack Saint basically just says nothing for like 20 minutes, and yet people praise him. He's so much like H-Bomber Guy, where like H-Bomber Guy just leans on his editing, but it's just all deception. It's all subterfuge. He's clearly a fucking dweeby fucker. Like, god damn, dude, I want to punch H-Bomber Guy in the face so much. I guess the objective thing, David Stewart, I like what he said, and I agree with him more. If you were to have an objective argument, I think John Cusack would be great in a Wes Anderson, especially like a Royal Tenenbaums.
Gotta find that meat wad, man. Why you guys always picking on me, man?
What David Stewart said is you can have an objective argument about film because you set a standard for argument, right? So when you make an argument, and this would be the academic use, I suppose, and he was a professor, you set a standard for your argument that this is my argument why this is bad, why this piece of information, filmmaking, writing, what have you, is bad. This is my argument. This is the standard I've set, and I've set the parameters to show that this is bad. So you have to match that argument. Okay, once he sets that standard, like this is a plot hole, and I explain why, you have to match that, and if you can't, that's about as close as you can get to what would be called an objective argument, even though it wouldn't officially be objective. And I think that's kind of what Mauler means, but he doesn't explain it as well. He just tries to say, like, science and these things are objective, gravity's objective. But I agree with the general idea that you can see that a movie is bad and still enjoy it, and then see that a movie is good and not enjoy it. Most friends of mine that are film buffs, or people that have an understanding of filmmaking, seem to generally agree with this. But the reason I think a lot of these YouTubers get defensive over the objective-subjective argument, and why they don't even want to have the conversation, is because it implies that they could be wrong. And these are narcissists. As Kenny Hott said in an interview, YouTubers are all narcissists. And I agree with that generally. I think these are very narcissistic people. So when they get the idea that, like, wait, I could be wrong, because the problem with subjectivity is that you lean on it too much. And even I've done it in the past, and I try not to do it anymore. When you can't win an argument, or you can't articulate why you like or dislike something, you usually say, I know this stuff's subjective. It's a really easy way to not get negative comments on your video. Every movie review I've ever done where I've clarified, where I've said this is a subjective point, people are much nicer in the comment section saying, well, I totally disagree with you, but it's just your opinion. But when you just say a movie sucks, as someone said during my Last Jedi videos, they said, listen to you talk about Rian Johnson, you go on like you invented celluloid, like you go on like you know more about filmmaking than Rian Johnson. They get mad about that kind of stuff. Because you didn't set those, I don't know, you didn't set up that thing for them to be like a scapegoat for yourself, basically. This is just my opinion, so it's okay. And people are nicer to you when you do that. But when you're just saying like what you think, and you shouldn't have to state it's your opinion. Like, that's so fucking stupid. Like, I'm saying it, so of course it's my opinion. Why do I have to clarify that it's my opinion for you, you fucking retard? Why do I have to tell you it's my... Of course it's my opinion, because I'm saying it. Doy. But I think what it is, a lot of the time, those people get defensive towards someone like Mauler because they don't really have a good counter-argument. I've never heard a good counter-argument for why The Last Jedi is good, especially to Mauler's videos or Red Letter Media. Most of the time, it just turns into nonsense. And so they get defensive because they can't accept the fact that maybe they're wrong about something, and I think that is fucking with them. But at the same time, I think Mauler's leaning way too much, especially Dishonored Wolf, who's borderline becoming a hack, if he's not already there, Hack Wolf, is the problem with them is that they're leaning way too much on the objective argument or the context, or we have to set the stage of the context of my argument on that, where they're kind of becoming a meme in themselves. I think it'd be better if we just kind of drifted away from subjectivity totally as a way to take away any criticism, and then objectivity, that we need to set this standard and we all have to meet it. I think there's a nice middle ground where we can just talk about movies and have discussions, and then kind of let the audiences decide who sort of won. That's where I would like to end up. No, I don't think Christian Bale got snubbed. I don't think he's good. The biggest problem with his performance in Vice is that he's a completely charismatic actor, but he's playing a very uncharismatic person. So it's a strange thing. Great makeup. It's not a bad performance. Do I think he's any better than the other nominees? No, not really. I mean, I guess he's a better actor than them in a way, but I mean, like, who cares? I don't really give a shit. I don't think he was snubbed, no. I think he should be very happy to get nominated. Basically, him playing Dick Cheney, the movie's bombed. It's mixed critically. Some people love it, some people hate it. Bohemian Rhapsody's a huge hit. Audiences love it. I don't like it. Audiences love it. And people love Rami Malek as Freddie Mercury. So I'd say that, because this isn't even an objective subjective thing. It's just like, one movie was very successful and the actor's being celebrated and he won, and the other guy is playing a historical figure too, and nobody seems to really give a shit. So no, I don't think he was snubbed, because in a lot of ways Vice is a failure. So he shouldn't just win for that, because Christian Bale's a good actor. That would have been awesome if Sacha Baron Cohen would have won an Oscar. I mean, if anything, I think a big reason that movie made money and people love it is Rami Malek, because he's great in Mr. Robot and he's a good actor. He just had a shit script and some bad direction. Bohemian Rhapsody's really badly directed. I don't blame him for that movie being crappy. He really had nothing to work with. So I'd say a big reason that that's a successful movie is because of him. So if anything, he honestly deserved it. So I don't have an issue with him winning. I just wish the movie had actually been good so I could be happy. I think it's more egregious that it won film editing. That's the one that offends me. Oh yeah, Toni Collette not getting nominated. Yeah, that stuff is bullshit. No, I don't like Hereditary either. I think it's actually pretty bad, but she's good in it. Although Toni Collette's always great. I think he's a little childish when he gets criticized on Twitter. I agree with that. I think he's dealing with ego too. It's a trap you fall into, you know. Power corrupts. The more successful. This is why Red Letter Media is so great, because they somehow avoided this, like ego. Maybe Mike sort of has that problem. But really, I give a lot of credit to people. All Fellini movies are good. I guess sometimes it does seem like Mauler gets a little too defensive when people come at him, or that he cares a little too much. But that, once again, this is how you grow a YouTube channel. This is how you become a success. You have to kind of be confrontational and confront other YouTubers and get in those debates. That's a really popular way to grow your channel, and I think Mauler's realized that, because he is smart and he's realized I can make a lot of money and get a big fan base if I go at these YouTubers. And it's either going to work out for him and he's going to become the biggest, he's going to become the top dog, or it's going to blow up in his face and he's going to have a huge downfall like many YouTubers before him. We have yet to see. The story of Mauler is not over, because as long as Disney's making Star Wars movies, that guy has content. Oh, you mean First Man? The one with Ryan Gosling? Which movie are you talking about specifically? I would love if they made a Sonic movie like Into the Spider-Verse. That's funny blood money. That's funny blood money. I'm a poet without even trying. It's weird like A Quiet Place didn't win for like sound editing or something though. I could have seen that, or sound mixing. Weird Bohemian Rhapsody won those two. I can kind of get sound mixing with Bohemian Rhapsody, but really sound editing, eh. Oh, First Man, yeah, I saw that movie, Damien Chazelle, which won Best Special Effects. I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't go see Alita, so I don't really have an opinion on it, man. I don't see many movies anymore. I haven't seen any of these movies. I didn't see The Upside. I haven't seen Lego Movie 2. I haven't seen Alita. I haven't seen How to Train Your Dragon 3. Like, so, yeah, I mean, I don't really go to the movies anymore. I've kind of fallen out of love with going to see movies, especially new films. And I hate saying that. I've kind of just fallen out of love with it. I still love movies, but I don't really enjoy going to the theater anymore to see movies, and I'm not excited about anything anymore. I don't get hyped anymore. I don't know what happened to me. At some point, I just stopped caring. It's not that I'm lazy. It's just that I don't care. Yeah, see, I agree with that. If A Quiet Place deserved anything, I think like sound editing or something. I think that was really the whole fucking movie. I like Dragon Ball Super Broly, actually. I watched it online because somebody uploaded like a 1080 quality, like uploaded like a beautiful HD quality. I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought it was great to see Dragon Ball Z with modern animation, and the fight scenes were badass. And I always hated Broly, and I always hated that original movie and all that stuff, but Toriyama actually being more involved, it was really, I thought it was shockingly good. It went back to like a lot of the roots and the ridiculousness and epicness of Dragon Ball Z, that Piccolo can be in another planet having a telepathic conversation with Goku, and they can just teleport to Piccolo. And then the way it even played on things like the fusion, it was a meta Dragon Ball Z movie. It was playing with our feelings towards Dragon Ball Z and nostalgia, while still delivering this like 40-minute action scene, this fight. I was really impressed with it, honestly. I mean, like, it's not a great movie or anything like that, but it's still like I mean, honestly, I think it was way better than I thought it was going to be. And the stuff with Bardock I thought was kind of great, although Bardock's always been my favorite Dragon Ball Z character. The Let the Right One In is one of my favorite movies of the last decade, and it's arguably my favorite vampire film. It's right up there for me with Werner Herzog's remake of Nosferatu, and Fright Night, which is one of my favorites, and then Vampire. I think Let the Right One In is kind of a masterpiece. Thomas Alfredson made Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. I think it's kind of a masterpiece. There's some CGI issues with it. The cats and stuff, Hoyt van Hoytema, people said he couldn't shoot CGI, although then he worked on Interstellar and Dunkirk. And Spectre, and those all look great. But yeah, I think it's a wonderful book, and Matt Reeves did that remake, which was decent, but the original film is a wonderful movie. The pool sequence, I mean, are you kidding? If you love somebody, does it really matter what they are or who they are, right? That's really what it's about. And can you love the monster in all of us, that we all kind of have a monster inside of us? Can you love us with that? But then also, cautionary tale, a warning: is the kid just going to be the man again who's sitting there with her? Was he a kid at one point? Does she just manipulate these young boys into taking care of her so she won't die? Is that the truly evil side of it? Is it that much of a horror film, which the implications are fucked? Or even being a boy, it's got subtext and themes that most horror films don't have. It's better directed than most horror films. It's better acted. And overall, just from a pacing, tonal standpoint, the melancholy of it and its somber moments, and then the just sheer impact, the viscera of the horror sequences. There's nothing really like it. It's one of the most original horror films. And in many ways, it taps into the best things that were great about Nightmare on Elm Street and Wes Craven, or Clive Barker, or something like that. I don't know. It's hard to compare it to many things. It's a wonderful movie. I think it was my favorite movie that year. Maybe, I don't know. I think Waltz with Bashir came out that year as well, and Dark Knight. But yeah, Let the Right One In is it's a gem. And it's I mean, yeah, for me, it's like a 9.5 out of 10. I think it's a wonderful film. I really don't have much negative to say about it. We're getting to How to Train Your Dragon 3. Oh, I love the original Nosferatu. It's great. But that Werner Herzog, I think, is incredible. I think it's so, especially how it ends. her plan to fuck him over with him sucking her blood until the sun comes up. The purity that she uses her purity against it. I mean, it's wonderful. Fucking love that movie. I hate Winter Sleep, and I am not a fan of that filmmaker. But yeah, just basically, I'm a big fan. But I'm a fan of that director, even though he made The Snowman. His first two films are both very good. Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy and Let the Right One In are both really good movies. Very well made. I don't hate him, but I'm not a big fan. Not impressed. Personally, I mean, I'm not saying I'm objectively right. How to Fuck Your Dragon 3, The Hidden Cunt. All right, the How to Train Your Dragon franchise. Let's talk about this. This is DreamWorks' like critical darling. Like a lot of people thought Kung Fu Panda was going to be that. First How to Train Your Dragon has like 97% on Rotten Tomatoes. It came out the same year as Toy Story 3. It would have won Best Animated Feature. Cost $165 million, made $494 million worldwide. Did good. Very acclaimed love. They started a show on Netflix a few years later. Then you get How to Train Your Dragon 2, which is a really good sequel. It has some Miyazaki elements, although it has that sequelitis. Now, see, the thing with animated films is they already build the world in the computer initially, so it becomes much cheaper to make the sequels. That's why the first film cost $165 million and the next one cost $145 million. Is because they already built the world in the computer. It gets cheaper each time, but it's very lucrative to make animated films. The same thing kind of happens too with like Transformers and Michael Bay. You're like, how's the budget lower on this one? It's because, well, they already did a lot of the work. You heard Kevin Smith talk about that on Joe Rogan's podcast. So the next film, $145 million total budget. Now this one did really disappointing box office domestically, $177 million domestic, not even close to the first film. But worldwide, $621 million, very acclaimed film. I really like this film. I actually How to Train Your Dragon's a really good movie. And then the Netflix series has gotten huge. So they wait a few years. Now the lead characters are older, Hiccup's earlier, Toothless is back, and Toothless is like one of the cutest designs. Now look at this film, $129 million, so we get even lower with the budget now because of that. So if you go from $165 million, which is a big budget, to $130 million, which is a pretty modest budget for an animated film. I remember years ago hearing about the white one, and that was going to be in the third movie. It's weird how that was right. So here we are with this film, $55 million opening weekend. That's the biggest opening weekend of the franchise. I think the word of mouth's very good on this. I think the hype's right. I think the Netflix show, I think it's reconnected this movie with kids. Because the first How to Train Your Dragon, like, what, it came out like 9 years ago. But here we are with the $55 million opening weekend. That's really solid. It's not great, but it's really solid and good. $274 million worldwide. I mean, with that budget, which is lower than the previous two, I'd say $500 million is a lock, if not $600 million, like the second film, to not even $650. So this will definitely break even and make a profit. So this is a successful trilogy critically, all films having over 90%, and it's going to financially be a successful trilogy where each film's going to make a profit. And if this film makes more than the second one, each film will have made more money worldwide. I think this will have a hard time reaching the domestic total of the first film, but we have yet to see that. Now, you also have to think adjusted for ticket price inflation. Let's see where the first How to Train Your Dragon would be. It would be at $250 million, so I don't think this is going to get close to that. Now, these are from the directors of Lilo and Stitch, which is a movie I think is generally very good. Lilo and Stitch is kind of great. It's really like, in a lot of ways, the last great 2D Disney animated film that was really successful. So,
Mahalo means family.
I mean, I like Stitch. Stitch is great. And the lead girl is like one of the best protagonists in a Disney movie. So, awesome. Just kind of like Rich Moore coming out with, Zootopia, and he was a Simpsons director for years, and the Wreck-It Ralph. It's cool to see these directors, or the guys who made Moana are the ones who made Aladdin. It's cool to see the Lilo and Stitch guy get to work on this series and how successful it's become. I do love the world. The world building's great. The designs of the dragons are great. Jay Baruchel's really likable as the protagonist. So good for everyone involved. I thought this film would be really successful. It had the trailer with that Ed Sheeran song, the only good Ed Sheeran song ever, Over the Castle on the Hill, which sounds like Summer of '69 meets a U2 song. So yeah, awesome. Awesome opening, and this film should be a major success. And it kind of just took all the steam away from Alita or Lego Movie. It really, I think it's really hurt these other films. Let's see where Ralph Breaks the Internet's at. About to make 200 million, which is more than the first film, and 514 million worldwide. So honestly, that film's doing pretty okay. Free Solo won Best Documentary. That guy's becoming like the Lance Armstrong of rock climbing. Mary Poppins Returns. Let's see where that's at. 345 million worldwide. That's still a major disappointment financially. Bumblebee is at 460 million, basically. Don't know if a sequel will happen. See if I'm missing anything worth bringing up. Don't think so. I think that's about it. Oh, Aquaman. Fuck, I think I just skipped over Aquaman. Aquaman's still major. 1,138 million worldwide. 332 mil domestic. Should definitely be a franchise now. Jason Momoa, I'd say, is just kind of like a full-blown movie star at this point. And this is huge for James Wan, who is easily one of the most successful directors working right now. The 17-day total of the Lego Batman movie was 133 million. The Lego Movie 2 is 83 million. That's just for context here. Split 130 versus 107. But then you see Aquaman is outpacing Batman v Superman. And How to Train Your Dragon 3 is slightly ahead of How to Train Your Dragon 2. So far worldwide, the top films are How to Train Your Dragon, Alita, Glass, Lego Movie, Escape Room, which is very successful, The Upside, Dragon Ball Super Broly, making 103 million worldwide, 30 mil domestic, which I believe makes it the biggest anime ever in the States. And then everything else is just kind of like mediocre to bad. So there you go. That's where we're at right now in 2019. We still have a lot of things to come out, like Avengers Endgame and Episode 9. There's a lot of shit still to come out. But so far, I'd say 2019 belongs to Aquaman. Even though I know it came out late last year, I still think it's the film right now that's kind of like the success story is Aquaman. I think that's where we're at. It's which is where it usually is, right? Superhero movies. They're not just complacent. It's just a lot of the people that led Pixar just aren't there anymore, you know? And it's different. It's a different era. I mean, they had such a legendary run. There was no way it was going to last. There was just no way it was going to last. Yeah, Lilo and Stitch is great. I think Lilo and Stitch... I saw it in the theater, man. I was like 13. I remember I went to Taco Bell that night and my mom yelled at me because I was being a little dick. No, 2D animated films are not making a comeback, unfortunately. And I wish they did, but I feel like they're never going to make a comeback. I feel like that era is dead. I know that's like a really cynical answer. I just don't see it. Blood Money, you'd be happy today. I shaved my beard down. It was getting really long and I was going to go for a shorter goatee. So I was talking to my fiance last night. She was telling me how handsome of a face I have. She's like, you know, you have a really handsome face, actually. And I'm like, well, yeah. And I was shaving down to a very nice goatee. I kind of had like that 90s Kevin Smith goatee going on. I was like, damn, this looks fucking bomb. I look sexy. And then I just kept shaving, and then I had the mustache, and I was like, fuck, I wish I could keep a mustache like this. And then I shaved down, and I was like, oh yeah, I am handsome. But I'm going to grow my beard back. This is what I do. This is what people don't know. Every 6 months, I grow a beard and have it for 6 months. And then after that, I shave. And then for about a month, I'm growing a beard. And then for 6 months, I have a beard again. It's like, my fiance hates it because she loves the beard. And women like beards in general now. But like for about 6 months out of the year, I have a beard. Then I shave it and then for about a month, I don't have much of a beard. Then the rest of the year, I have a beard. So I pretty much have a beard like 10 months. And that's where we're at. But I just get bored. I have the full beard where it's big and bushy. And then I have the goatee. Then I have the metalhead, long beard. Then I'm clean shaven. Then I have the stubble. Of course I like Monty Python, Life of Brian. And what the fuck kind of question is that? Yes. Do I like two of the best comedies ever made? Hey, do you like Seinfeld? Oh, Shutter Island's okay. I liked it when it came out and rewatches. I mean, it's got wonderful dream sequences, and Leo's really good in it. And it's got elements that remind me of The Shining, but overall, it's very flawed. It's a very flawed, haunted house movie. Yeah, the only Jodorowsky film I love is El Topo. I'm not as big on Holy Mountain as much as everyone else is, but I think El Topo's really great. And important. Dear God. Well, of course a butt double was hired. Have you seen her ass? She doesn't have one. And Brie Larson's a good-looking chick. As much as I hate her, she's not a bad-looking lady. She's a cute chick. Oh, well, it's because Holy Grail's better made. Unfortunately, one of the issues with Life of Brian is it kind of looks like shit. The cinematography is kind of bad, and you can't really see the sets. And that's always something he fought with Terry Jones about, where Holy Grail is beautiful. Like, it has cinematography and lighting sometimes that makes you think of Tarkovsky. Like, it's got beautiful lighting. It's such a gorgeous film, and I think the cast just sort of works better. And there's a tonal thing coming from the visuals. But I agree with you, Life of Brian overall has the better script and is more biting and kind of classic in the way, but I just don't think it has the filmmaking prowess or of Holy Grail. Holy Grail is just kind of like perfect. And how it's looked and is presented. But Life of Brian is great. I'm not like putting, Brian. One of my favorite jokes ever is when his mother leans down to suck the Roman's cock. The soldier's cock. I mean, that stuff's great. Oh, wasn't it great to see Richard Grant nominated for an Oscar last night? That couldn't have made me happier, man. All these years, Richard Grant's been underused, man, ever since With an L and I, and he got his supporting acting nomination last night for that. Can You Ever Forgive Me? That was wonderful to see him there at the Oscars. I'm very, I mean, how can you not love Richard Grant? He's phenomenal. That was really cool. Just like seeing Peter Farrelly and Chris Miller and Phil Lord win. All that was cool. Seeing Richard Grant being nominated for an Oscar was fucking cool. I really like the Red Letter Media on Top Secret, though. They're so right about the underwater sequence and the reverse. That's funny, that reverse sequencing. Yeah, it's David Lynch does on Twin Peaks. Like, it's really impressive filmmaking. It's like they're doing it years before. Although they were saying it was kind of like their unsung masterpiece, and I've always liked Top Secret the most out of those parody movies. But for me, I think Ruthless People by the Zuckers is actually their really, even though it was a big hit, I think Ruthless People is like this phenomenal comedy nobody talks about anymore. Oh, Patterson, is that the Adam Driver reads poetry movie? Yeah, it was overrated the same way every modern Jim Jarmusch film is overrated.